Do your periodic paralysis attacks feel unmanageable? Like there is some unknowable force just keeping you down? Periodic paralysis in all of its forms can be a debilitating medical condition to live with. But the truth is, it is manageable. Everyone is affected differently, but if you use the techniques we're going to discuss in this video, then you have a real chance of fighting for normalcy. Here's how you start. Your paralytic attacks don't just happen randomly. They're caused by certain triggers. The good news is, most of them are avoidable. For hypo patients, there are 3 main categories, the biggest one being food. Sugar, sodium, and carbs are the most common ones. However, everyone with periodic paralysis has different tolerance levels. For example, my mom does not have a high threshold at all when it comes to sugar. Eating just a bowl of cereal like Panda Puffs, which has 9 grams of sugar per serving, can cause her fatigue if she's not careful with everything else she eats that day. Whereas I can tolerate more sugar, though it's still a lot less than what the average person eats. For hyper patients, avoiding potassium-rich foods is key. The second type is environmental triggers, such as extreme heat or cold. These can be harder to control, but there are actions you can take to help mitigate their effects on you. During winter months, try to keep yourself warm while both outside and at home. Dress in more layers, buy a heated blanket or vest, whatever you think will help, and make sure to keep yourself cool during the summer. No, I am not going to take my shirt off to represent summer. If environmental triggers are a problem for you, it may be best to avoid jobs that lack climate control. Physically strenuous activity is a common trigger for all types of periodic paralysis. Attacks occur while you're at rest, so keep that in mind. Finally, there are also triggers entirely outside of your control, such as stress, your menstrual cycle, and some claim to be affected by the barometer. I am one of them. During these times, be more diligent about avoiding your food and environmental triggers to make sure these don't worsen your current state. We can't promise that you'll be able to avoid every attack, but learning and avoiding your triggers is the best way to achieve a healthier life. So next comes the important question of how you even know what your triggers are. The answer is honestly just trial and error. Understandably though, that's a task way easier said than done. Keeping track of all of the food you eat, their ingredients, and finding common themes can be a time-consuming challenge. However, in recent years, we have been blessed with multiple different resources to make keeping track of this stuff easier. That didn't used to be the case. To showcase just how much of a nightmare this used to be, I interviewed Paul, the PPA's patient advocate, so he could introduce me to a tool he so lovingly refers to as the Excel sheet of horror. Which I quickly learned is a bit of a misnomer when I was emailed 5 different files, with one of them being over 50 pages long. Oh, I thought it was just one huge sheet.
No.
Which now begs the question of how this ecosystem of documents and graphs is supposed to function. Could you, take me through step by step? You have an attack. How does it get documented? What's the first thing you open up, and then where does that information go first?
Whenever I would have an attack, I would go to the attack diary, and I would just write down whatever information I had at the time of day, whether my service dog had alerted, if I had eaten anything weird, how long I had been paralyzed, anything notable about the attack. So I would start there.
And so then when you got home, what was the first Excel sheet that you opened to start documenting?
So generally, I think the first thing that I started entering things into is the old attack graph HM3. So this is just the most basic information that we could enter in consistently for all of the attacks I was having. What medications am I on? Is there anything weird about the attacks? Pain, duration of the attack, and little basic information.
There's also a sheet tracking his potassium levels and the type of potassium, as he used to get all different kinds from his pharmacy.
I wanted to stay on the same exact formulation, and the pharmacy was like, Potassium's potassium, and would just keep giving me whatever type of potassium they had on hand.
Another sheet has him tracking what medications he is on, and if any of those changes affected his HKPP. Paul also made a condensed version of his tachograph to give his doctor, showcasing that taking him off Diamox was detrimental.
And it has the dystonia in here. It's completely irrelevant for what you're looking for, and that's because it has the dystonia and syncope and apnea. That's because at the time I still had the my spine unfused, and my uh, vertebrae would shift around and compress my spine and cause me to stop breathing and have seizures and stuff like that. That's completely Ehlers-Danlos related and not periodic paralysis related in any way, shape, or form.
Along with having HKPP, Paul also has Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. Paul talks about managing both conditions in an episode of our documentary series, which is freely available on this YouTube channel. If you wish to see more of him and hear his story, the link to that episode is available both on screen and in the description below this video. So now I have a very burning and important question. Who named it the Excel sheet of horror?
My mom did. My mom did.
Your mom?
I think she was talking to somebody. I think it was one of her friends, and she's just like the Excel sheet of horror that we enter everything into. Yeah, yeah, that name kind of stuck. I mostly let her do that because, it kind of takes a psychological toll on you to enter in every terrible thing that happens to you every single day. If you can have somebody else do that for you, I highly recommend doing that because it sucks doing it yourself.
That's good to know. I didn't even think of that. Appreciate taking up your time today.
I don't envy your editing job.
Yeah. Fortunately, you no longer have to go to such lengths to keep track of everything. Xeris Pharmaceuticals have developed a great tool called the Daily Tracker, which you can find linked in the description of this video. It makes keeping tabs on what you're eating and your symptoms much easier. Another solution has been shared on the Periodic Paralysis Support Network. A patient named Rachel Carter developed her own PP tracker, and the admin of the PPSN, Ralph Berthium, is assisting her with updates and even expansions. Knowing that you have periodic paralysis is already a large part of the battle won, and now that you know this technique, your life with this condition will become at least a little bit easier. You might not be able to go back to exactly the way things were before your diagnosis, but identifying your triggers and staying proactive can make a big difference in becoming stable and developing a new normal. But keep in mind that no matter how prepared you are, accidents will always happen. Looking even beyond your condition, life is filled with them. Some of them may require an ambulance ride, which can become life-threatening if you can't communicate your needs with the first responders. The best way to protect your life until you get to the hospital is with one of these. I'm not joking. These have saved my life, my mom's life, and maybe one day could save your life. Click on this video to learn more about them.